Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So this is a video on a type aliases in our introduction to TypeScript series. So in this video, we are going to focus on type aliases in TypeScript. So how can type aliases be used in TypeScript to create different stuff? And you're going to see the advantage of type aliases in TypeScript. So let's jump into it. So this is where we left off from last time. We talked about, I believe we talked about functions. So now we're going to go ahead and talk about aliases. Okay, so let's say I have me create an object right here. I'm going to call this a person. And let's say a person can have, right, a person can have a person object can have a name, right? A person can have a name, and let's say the name is Prince, right? The person can also go ahead and have maybe an age, and let's say the age is 30, right? So Prince is 30 years old. So this is theoretical. So once I have that information done, so I can go down here and simply say console.log, and I can say person, right? And then say person dot. I can see I have only age and name, right? So in JavaScript, you can simply do, let's say address, right? You're trying to access the address attribute of the person. So the person object. So you can see this is not going to work in TypeScript, but in JavaScript, when you compile out JavaScript, it's going to work perfectly. And let's see what we get back in JavaScript. We just get undefined, right? Because the address is undefined for that person. But going back to TypeScript, you can see TypeScript doesn't allow us, says that property address does not exist on type of the person type, right? If you don't have that property on type of person. So you can see now this is an advantage of TypeScript. It warns us ahead of it, right? So good. So let's say that we have a function. Let's give a function that simply prints out this user's information. So let's go ahead and create a function right here. And we're going to say function and call it get user details. User details. And this function is just going to go ahead and do the following. So this function is going to go ahead and return. So you can go ahead and specify the return type as a string. So the return type is going to be a string. And what you're going to go ahead, you're going to take in an object. So we can say a person object, so person. And I didn't specify the type of this. So it's going to be by default any. So that's going to give us an error, right? You can do that in TypeScript. So what you can go ahead and do is describe for TypeScript what kind of object you expect. So you expect an object with two attributes: name, name of the person, and the age of the person. So we're going to say name, and name is going to be of type string. And also expect the age of the individual, and it's going to be of type number. So good. So TypeScript is going to be expecting me to pass in an object that has name attributes or the name property and the age property. So I can go down here and simply access those. So I can simply say, I can use this one right here. I'm going to return a string, and I'm going to say user, let's say username, uh, and I'm going to go ahead and access that username. So dollar sign, right? Because I'm using string literals right here. I'm going to say person dot name, just like that. Is let's go ahead and say the age. So let's go ahead and say the age of the individual, and you can go ahead and say person dot age, and you can say years old, just like that. So good. So we have that information right there. I can go ahead and simply save the code. So once we are telling TypeScript that we're going to expect a person object, and this you're going to expect a parameter to be passed in, and this parameter is going to be of type object, and it's going to be of this format. It's going to have the name property, which is going to be of type string, and also should also have the age property, which is also going to be of type number. And at the end of the day, you're going to be returning simply. You're going to go ahead and return a string. That's what you're basically telling TypeScript that you're going to pass in. So that's basically it. So let me see if I can reduce the size a bit so you guys can see this clearly. So you can see this is the information that I'm passing in and expecting TypeScript to return to me. So good. So once I go ahead and call this function, get user details, and I can go ahead and pass in a person, which is going to be having the property, this basically an object of this format, right? So if I go back in here, you see I get no errors in TypeScript. Now just simply returning it, so I can go ahead and simply do a console again so it in a variable. Let's say const result, or let's say details, and then details are going to be of type string. It's going to be equals to string, and it's going to be equals to this, right? So I can go ahead and simply return do a console.log, and you can simply log out the details. Okay, so once I have it done, if I go back in the terminal right here, I can see username Prince is 30 years old. So good. So I can see I get back that information, right? So that's basically how we can work with those objects. Now we can see we are repeating a lot of stuff, right? This is a lot of information to return. So we're going to be returning, we're basically telling it to return all of this. So imagine we had another function. Let me just keep the same function, and you're just going to go ahead and say, want to return what you simply taken as argument. So let's go ahead and say going to return an object that has this format. Basically, which is going to be the person, right? The person object. So I'm going to say delete all this and say person. That works perfectly because person also follows this formatting right here. So person follows this formatting of let me just zoom in a bit. Okay, so person also follows person object also follows the formatting of name, age. Basically just returning that right back. So now I can just go ahead and copy this information right here. So copy it from here and simply replace details with that information, or I can go ahead and specify the type of details as let me just say I can go ahead and specify the type of detail as this, copy this and simply return it here. That would work perfectly, right? Because we are saying that detail is going to be of type object that has this format, and it's the same format that this function is going to return. So in here I can just go ahead and return get print out details instead. So if I go back to the code, it's working fine. You can see that object right there, right? So it works perfectly fine. So that's how you can do it in TypeScript. But you can see I'm repeating a lot of stuff. What if I want to what if I have the same code in 1000 lines and I want to go ahead and add another attribute, right? I have to go to every line and change that. So that's really tedious and really hard to do. So that's another way around it. So the other way around it is actually very simple. So the other way around is what we call better way around is we call types in uh, in TypeScript. So basically, I'm just going to go down here. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say type. It is just a keyword in TypeScript. And I'm going to call this one employee. So let's say employee, it's going to be called employee. And employee is going to be the following. So employee is going to be an object type. Okay. So just specifying the format right here. So we expect the name of the employee and the age of the specific employee. So save that. So each employee should have a name and basically an age. So if I go here, I can say this person is going to be of type employee. And well, the reason why this is going to work is because we're providing an object that has the same attributes and data types as specified in the employee type. So that's the one we can define our own types. So instead of coming here and writing all this, we can just go in here and just change all this to be employee, and that would work. And then instead of having all this return type specified out here, I can just go ahead, get rid of all this and specify employee details here as well, and everything is going to work fine. So you can see everything works fine. And also here, instead of having all this, I can just get rid of all this and specify employee as well, and everything gonna work fine. So if I go back in, I can still get in the code. So that's basically an easier way of doing it. So that's one of the way where types come in. So how using types here becomes really simple. So if I want to change something, I want to also add another attribute. Let's say address, right? So address, and it's gonna be of type string, right? So everything that is gonna be of type employee needs address. So you can see that person doesn't have address, so you can go ahead and add the address. You can add the address as gonna be of type string. So you can say Nairobi. So I'm currently in Nairobi, Kenya. So I can go ahead and specify Nairobi right there. So everything else works fine, right? So if I go back in here, now you can see if you have the address attributes in there. So good. So that's how we can work our way around using types. Okay. So if you want to define your own types, then you can. This is how you define using the type keyword and the name of the type, and then finally you define it. What is the type about? Okay, and you can use it in your code. Okay, good. So now that we have that out of the way, everything now is clear, right? So I hope you guys have understood this. And if you want, this is really important that you understand because it's used a lot in TypeScript. Okay, so kindly go ahead and give this a time and try to really understand this. Okay, so let me get rid of. In fact, I'm just going to get rid of. Let me see. Okay, let me just keep everything for now. Let me just show you. Sometimes you might have multiple types and you want to combine the multiple types into one. So let's say we have another type, person, right? Person is another type, and then this is going to be the following. So this person, we expect the person to have a name, and it's going to be string type. We expect the person to have an age, and it's going to be number type. That's basically every person should have a name and address, and also we expect the person to have basically an address. Okay. Good. So that's basically a pass what the person type is going to have. Let me cut this right here and bring it down here. So now for the employee is going to be the following. So employee is going to have an employee ID. So I'm going to say ID is going to be of type string. Let's say an office, right? Let's say salary, the salary of that specific employee. So salary. And then finally, it's going to have an office, right? It's going to be like an office name. So office where the employee works. So every employee needs to be a person at the end of the day. So let's go ahead and say, let's say employee one, let's say employee, and this employee is going to be of type. Now we want it to be of two types, right? So we want the person the employee. Let me just go in here. Let me create another type right here. So I'm going to say type, and this type is going to be called employed person. And employed person is first, for you to be employed, first you need to be a person, right? You need to have a name and age and address, and you also need you to have an employee status, right? An employee details like employee ID, the office, the salary that you get, the office that you work in. You all need that information. So now we want to go ahead and create an employee. So an employee is first, it's a combination of both a person and an employee types. Okay. So if you're employed in a company, you have all these attributes. You're first a person before you become an employee, right? Okay, so now we want to create an employee. So I'm going to go ahead and say employed person. This is going to be an employed person. Now, employed person is a combination of the two. So it needs to have all the attributes of these attributes of the person and attributes of salary as well. So you can see we have all the attributes of person. Now you need to go ahead and say ID. Pass in the ID. You can go ahead and specify any random ID for the person. And you can also, we need to pass in the salary. And salary is going to be, let's say, 20K. Yeah, 20K. And also, you can go ahead and pass in the office of the individual. So office, I'm going to say Nairobi, Nairobi headquarters. So HQ. So that's basically it. So now I'm going to go ahead. Let me just not forget the comma right here. So that's basically it. And these things can be in any order that you want. They must not follow the same order that you have of person and then finally employee details. No, they can be in any order that you want. So an employed person is a combination of the person type and an employee type. So that's basically it. So now if I go ahead and check the code again, now we have an error. So person is not inference. So I have to change this to be employee, right? So change this to be employee. So now that should work fine. So now this is going to have an error, right? Because this is not be an employee type. Let's say this is going to be of type employed person. So copy that, and the return type is going to be employed person as well. And you're going to go ahead and return the employed person. Okay. Okay, so this is going to be, sorry, person rather. And then now let's check the code, and now you can see we have all those details right here. Everything works as we expect it to. So that's basically how we can combine different types, type aliases, to form multiple types. So this one we can do it, and then we can also do it. You can also go ahead and also say this one, and then add in other attributes that you think you should need to add in. So you can go ahead and also say, maybe you also need some other information. Uh let's say let's say country, right? And it's gonna be of type string. So now once you have this added, now we have to go in here and also add in country. So country record, so you can say country, and let's say add in a country, Kenya. I'm currently in Kenya, so I can add in the Kenya attribute as well. So you can see I have all that there, and if I check the code, everything works as it should, right? So we also have the country right here. Okay, so good. So you can see all that information. That's how you can combine multiple types to form one type. Okay. So previously it was a, let me just change this back to one thing I noticed, you have to change this back to employee, and also change this back to employee. Okay, good. So if I change it back to employee, everything still works. So if I run the code, everything still works, right? Everything still works, even though this type is different from others. But basically, it has all the employees that we need. So yeah, employees need to have an employee ID, which is in here. We need to have salary, which is in here. Also need to have office, which is in here. Since it meets that attribute, then the type can be of type employee, right? Even though what you're passing is employed person type, right? And that's a bit different. So you can see it still works at the end of the day, because it has that satisfy all the attributes that employee needs to provide. So it must satisfy the attributes, and if it wants to add on, it can add on, but it must specify the basic attributes, these attributes right here. So that's basically how you can combine types in TypeScript. So I hope you guys understand how this works, and so that's how you can use type aliases in TypeScript. And this is very, very, very important concept in TypeScript. If you move on to TypeScript for Next.js or React development, you use all these concepts. So it's very crucial you understand these type aliases in TypeScript. So guys, that's all I for this video. If you guys have any questions regarding it, let me know in the comment section below. I'll do my best to get back to you. And one way you can simply support the channel is giving this video a like for the algorithm. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Share this video with your friends, your colleagues who are also learning TypeScript, also who want to know TypeScript or who are doing web development. share this video with them, and also let me know a comment in the comment section or below. If it's a good comment or a bad comment, they all help the growth of the channel. Okay, so if you want me to support me further, you can buy me coffee. The links will be in the description of the video. So guys, thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Keep safe.